Yes, we are back in nature. We are back in nature. About to have a really good discussion about something that's controversial, but I feel like it shouldn't be.
We're talking about how polygyny doesn't make sense.
Mm.
It's just a definition. It's not a community. It's just a definition. When you go on Google, it's one aspect of polygamy. Polygamy means multiple spouses.
Yeah.
So polygyny, that is not a community.
I feel like it shouldn't be. I feel like understanding reciprocity,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're really a study of the laws of the universe and really trying to become a universal lawyer, how could you not feel right with it not? How could you feel right with it not being equal on both sides? I know as a man, it's harder. It's more difficult to be emotionally capable of thinking about or accepting any form of like sharing your mate, or sharing your wife. But I think the problem with men is that we automatically think about sexual intercourse
Mm-hmm.
when somebody mentions intimacy. For the men who know that they want or need multiple women in their life, and they're open in the broadcast about poly, and you want 3, 4, 5 women in your life as wives, hopefully, functionally, and building towards something, that means that you're not capable of pleasing all your wives on every level of what they may desire. That's not possible. It's impossible. And going into poly and understanding this as a man, that if you do want multiple women, you have to accept the fact that these women are gonna mentally desire other men, physically maybe, but more importantly, they might desire other more experience, because you're not capable of being at 4 or 5, 3 places at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that she doesn't love you anymore, any less. It means more, even more so, that she's accepting of you wanting multiple women and wanting to build a family and community with you. But she's a human too. She has one. She naturally could want intimacy and going into business and goes in something with another man who has some sort of a business. She might want to travel the world and meet a man who has access to different villas and can put her in position to make these vlogs and put her in a better position to bring in more income into your household. I'm just giving different scenarios of being open, of a man being open to his wives having intimate relationships with other men,
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't always have to lead to sex.
Right.
Sex is a different conversation,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like, you can touch more on that part of it. But I feel like, that's something that the man has to really meditate on and have a conversation with God about, because if his wife is honest and transparent enough to come to him and say, "Hey, I really have been thinking about romantic and passionate sex with this man that I'm building a relationship with. I haven't done it yet, but I have been thinking about it because I am attracted to him, not just physically, but his intellect, his leadership, the way that he's able to, organize things and put things in place for me, and his bravery. And I'm just attracted to him and I want to spend more time with him." How do you feel about that? The honesty, knowing you got 3 other women, knowing
It's
you got 3 other women
that's
waiting for you,
it's
they hot and ready.
that's gluttony. If you are like, you're not okay with that,
Mm,
you have any objection about it, and she's your wife, you trust her, right?
mm-hmm.
She shouldn't be your wife if you don't trust her. So That's gluttony, merely gluttony, which is a sin. That's a sin. Go ahead, babe. Anything else you
Yeah,
want
yeah. I
to?
mean,
Mm-hmm.
the gluttonous nature of man, the gluttonous nature of us has been all throughout time. It's even I don't even like people addressing me as king sometimes because kings conquest and conquer, and they're very gluttonous in some cases, and they want to conquer. They want to go here and take over this land and take and plumage this you know. I'm saying that loosely because
Yeah,
that's not all what kings do, but
yeah,
I mean
yeah.
the and especially the way the Eurocentric symbolism of what a king is too,
So
and so I feel like the gluttonous nature of us with our if it crosses over with our women, and then we get corrupted by like what that's supposed to look like as a dictator, when really as a man I understand some things are difficult to accept when you're holding space for women and providing for women. But it goes back to trust, like you said. But if you trust your wives, you trust your partner, then you know she will be making a good decision within the people that she's bringing around y'all, and she has around herself, of course, but like who she's trying to incorporate in her life to bring value. I'm not. I'm, and it is kind of a touchy subject for men because most men are so gluttonous and greedy and self-centered in a sense of how they think and view women. So it's like we can have all like a woman can step out, she's a hoe, you know, but a man, you know, he can have several different. He the man.
the men who are misogynistic behind like black polygamy pages in particular that I have personally had conversations with and got the information that I needed in terms of how do they actually think in their perceptions to derive to where I am today to completely remove myself from that word because that's what is going on in their mind. So the black polygamy pages, the men who run these pages, they're looking at it from a polluted and diseased mind. So it's coming from the perspective of a man who desire to have more than one woman in his life. This is what my husband is talking about.
Right. I'm glad you clarified that because we just got straight into it. And the polygyny part, and like you said, polygyny, all these different terms, they're all one collective, but it seems to get separated when
Mm-hmm.
there's a bias on
Yes.
an ego involved.
Yeah. If it's only one side. So they're
Right.
still running on divide and conquer, right? These people, these men behind these black polygamy pages are still, and even men who desire polygyny, who they attract to their pages, where they desire this concept of having multiple women in their life, but they themselves have not evolved spiritually as men. So and not all, of course,
Right.
right? So it's not all, but we're talking about what has happened, right? Because you will not get a community out of this. And this is not about bashing men, right? There's a lot of men bashing, right? It's not about a bashing men. It's about helping the divine masculine evolve on this planet.
Absolutely. And then because I remember you coming in with polygyny, and it was about the upliftment of black men
Mm-hmm.
because we need it. So on the other end, if we talking about polygyny, polyamory, polyandry, all of it together.
Mm-hmm.
On the other end, if one of your wives comes to you about another man, she ain't had sex with him yet, but she's interested. And I think one of the first questions the husband should ask is, does he uplift you? Is this uplifting for you?
And let's
You know?
also let's also talk about what we actually have to talk about reality, right? We're not talking about what something a concept of the past and trying to bring it into the future. No, there's an aspect of Sankofa where you take things that you have from the past, but you have to transmute it into something that is for modern times, right? So especially for our community, for Black Americans, we have to look at various things. So with some of the men will say, well, for the man who runs the Black Polygamy page, he's like, this is to help the ratio balance and keep fathers in the home. I agree with that, and I started with that. However, just that model alone is flawed because we are living, breathing souls. It's not accounting for all of the reality of today. So you would never get masses of Black women organizing um, in a way that is functional in sharing husbands just off that motto alone. That's not enough to do that. Why? Because where is Black women a status, socioeconomic status in America? We know that has systematically been done to Black women, of course, being, more educated and, of course, career status and even entrepreneurship. So they hold a different economic status in this country than Black men. So that has to be accounted for. Okay. The other thing that has to be accounted for is the fact that the statistics in general in America of marriages. So it is statistically proven that women cheat just as much as men. It is also proven that women get away with cheating more than men do. So this gets more into the construct of when you look at, okay, women do this already with monogamy and they're not happy. So 80% of divorces are filed by women in this country. So when you look at that model alone and then you say, okay, now take that we see what's actually happening and then put more women there, that's not going to solve that problem. That's not going to solve that problem at all. Now, yes, keep the fathers in the home. Now, let's look at a real scenario. Let's look at a real scenario on why polyamory, functional polyamory, is the solution for Black Americans. Let's take a real example because we have to remove everything that we have been taught about marriages, sex, relationship, and even what a concept of a spouse is. From an indigenous perspective, a spouse is someone that you had even had a child with. You are still bound and responsible to that person from an indigenous perspective, even if you all do not have an intimate relationship together.
Right.
So let's take a real life
we're
example.
Missing that concept.
Yes. So let's take, because of possession.
Yeah.
So let's take, and even on the men's side too, because he's not involved with you anymore.
And I want to clarify something that you said about the women and infidelity. Now that point was made to go with the polygyny side, because if you really believe in your head as a man, you're very egotistical that you have 3 or 4 women and they don't want other men, or they're not talking or texting and communicate with other men, or they don't want another man outside of you, then you're delusional. And especially if you're not keeping yourself up, especially if you're not practicing higher forms of intimacy and passion and connection, especially if you're not evolving spiritually, especially if you think you're just going to be solely a provider.
Right. Yeah, no. And also that's too much on one man. A one man do not represent a community. A community involves brotherhood and sisterhood. But then when you ask these questions with these men, that's what I'm saying. It's not about community building. We are not just numbers and statistics as Black Americans. We're not animals. We're living, breathing souls. We have to deal with reality. So let's say that this is what it means to keep the fathers in the home by using a concept of husband sharing. It's going to involve functional polyamory, because let's say that a woman had a child by a Black man and they no longer have an intimate relationship together in terms of sex, but they do still have a relationship with the child. So she could, let's say, live in a compound, a house, with his other wives. Let's say his new wife that he actually have a marriage with, and she's pregnant, and they're developing a family together. And in that, she still has a right to a relationship and a lover. So she may be developing a relationship with another man in a community that she's helping, and he's getting himself together, so that they're then expounding on businesses, elevating their collective of what's going on with her child's father and sister wife.
Mm-hmm.
So this is pulling group economics. Is you see that there is a concept of husband sharing. Let's just completely remove the word polygyny because it is so tanked. It is so loaded with misogyny and
Mm.
concept of treating women as objects. No, women are living, breathing souls. So remove that word. Let's talk about, so we're talking about husband sharing as solving the fatherless homes and women not competing in our communities and us pulling resources together. Well, that's not going to always look like the woman being sexually intimate with the man that she had sex with and had a child with before,
Right.
because we evolve.
Mm-hmm.
We evolve relationships, we evolve as human beings. So if that's the case, we have to continue to elevate as a collective though. So that's what it's about. It's about group economics, collectivism. It's about pulling resources together. It's not about people's egos. It's not about lust. And polygamy is not about a man having multiple wives. Polygamy is not about a man having more than one wife because that's just how men are. Who told you that? Who this is what I'm saying. Like, no. It's about, even being a man is about community. Yeah, we're just having
Mm-hmm.
these things flying
Yeah,
around.
nature for real, y'all.
Yeah. So even being a man and being a woman is about being a constituent part of a community collective. You're not meant to be an isolated individual because humans are tribal. Since the dawn of our existence, the creator made us to be tribal. So that does not make sense for a man to say polygamy is about, a man having multiple wives. And, they'll try to use that's why I'm saying it's a misogynistic ideology when you are disguising what you're doing and saying that community building for the Black community, solving fatherless homes, but you don't account for reality.
Yeah.
You don't account for the fact that what happens in real life, in terms of a Black couple getting together and at some point the relationship evolving, him growing a love interest for another woman, her growing a relationship with another man, a Black man in the community. This actually happens. Blended families actually happen to this day. That is a form of polygamy. Okay. So it's really all of it together. So going to Google and looking at that is incompetence. Okay. Going to Google and trying to understand human relationships from a polygamous perspective is incompetent. You would never understand indigenous, tribal polyamory and polygamous communities being formed by Googling a definition. That is incompetent. And then you trying to promote an image of that, you will fail because you have to also be chosen by the spirit, by
Absolutely.
God, as a purpose to be someone who mend a community together.
And if you want to Google something, Google the statistics on Black men incarceration. Google the statistics on Black men um, being
Mm-hmm.
victim killed by
Mm-hmm.
police.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that to say this is what part of polygyny was about because of what's happening to Black men on one end, but on the other end, Black men that are in so-called polygyny, understanding that the sisters who have this consciousness to understand that is in itself shows the deserving of polyamory. For a
Yeah.
sister even having a consciousness to see the condition that you're in, be in a position to practice polygyny only because it's a part of the collective of what poly is.
Right.
You
But
see what I'm saying?
just because that you don't fall in that, so this is a huge thing that you just talked about. So the high statistic rates of Black men being incarcerated, homosexuality amongst Black men. So we get down these statistics. Just because you're a statistic that doesn't fall in those buckets does not make you deserving of having more than one wife.
Mm-hmm.
That is like looking at us as objects and numbers and animals, just breeding for reproduction. That's not what we are. We're living souls. That we're trying. We're This is the existence that we're in today. It is for us to evolve our souls. So, no, that does not make a man deserving of having more than one wife. What makes a man deserving of having more than one wife is his predisposition towards black women.
Mm,
We're talking about black men.
I like that.
So his predisposition towards you. So is it approval? Is it acknowledgement? It is appraisal. Is it worship of the black woman's image in her natural state? Her natural state. That is what his subconscious mind disposition of looking at any sister as. That's what would make a black and his feelings
Yeah.
and his feelings in his heart towards black women.
Some of y'all feelings towards black, some of the way y'all talk about black women
Mm-hmm.
when they ain't around, and when they're around, and honestly, it makes me really question if you even love your mama.
In one aspect, my husband is my husband, my son, my father, my uncle, my brother. In one aspect, I am my husband's. In one aspect, I am my husband's wife, aunt, mother, daughter, and sister. And you should look at every black man and woman that way.